Thanks for being here. My name is Amy Zimmer, and I am the Communication and Outreach Specialist for Marion Soil and Water Conservation District, and I will be your host today. And I am joined by my colleague, Environmental Education Specialist Cassie Roos, who will be our co-host today. And with May right around the corner, we hope that you will save the date for our upcoming emerald ash borer trapping workshop. As emerald ash borer has been detected in Marion County, the district is hosting a series of events for 2026, and this is our next in that event series to learn about emerald ash borer and what we can do in our own communities to control this invasive pest. Additionally, we've got previously recorded First Friday presentations on this topic that can be accessed at our YouTube's page from folks at ODF, USDA, and Oregon Department of Agriculture. So I encourage folks to take a look at those. But of course, the reason why everyone is here today, we're pleased to have with us from Dark Sky, Oregon, board member Chris Hill, as he discusses the components of light pollution and its impacts on circadian rhythm, bird migration, and nighttime pollinators. In this talk, Chris will discuss the tenets of smart lighting, the trending encroachment of light pollution in our night sky, what this means in Salem and Marion County specifically, and what you as a community member can do about it. Chris is an experienced and avid deep sky astro-photographer with a passion for preserving and sharing the wonders of the dark sky with everyone. Chris has wide experience in analytical chemistry, commodity sampling, software development, and IT management. Chris was born in London, England, and immigrated to the US in 1984. He's married with 2 adult daughters and has been living in Bend full-time since 2024.
Jump into the topics as she mentioned that we're talking about what light pollution is, why blue light is so hazardous to our health and the health of the wildlife, and then the impact that it has on our starry skies, as well as a new aspect of light pollution, not just coming from the ground, but also space related. And then what we can do to actually address those issues. So let's talk about what light pollution is. It's pretty much made up of 4 components, which are sky glow, glare, light trespass, and clutter. And pretty much the sky glow is actually caused a lot by blue light, because that is the light that scatters. It's one of the reasons why our actual sky is blue, because the light that comes from our sun enters the Earth's atmosphere, and then the blue component of the spectrum is taken out, and that's what illuminates the sky. So taking blue light out of the light spectrum of our artificial lighting will significantly reduce sky glow. And we'll show that some examples of that in some later slides. Glare, well, you know, we've all seen the advent of LED headlights in especially some of these pickup trucks coming towards you, where you think that the person has got their full beams on, and then you flash them and say, hey, you know, you've got your full beams on, and then they flash you with their full beams. And this glare can cause not only visual discomfort, but also can also cause night blindness at a rather dangerous time when driving. So glare is not just on the road, it's coming from other artificial light. Light trespass, also considered basically nuisance lighting, and that is where light from light sources at a neighbor or other location is trespassing past the property lines of where it's supposed to be located. And then clutter focuses on pretty much lighting from all different parts of an urban environment where light comes from various different sources and different land. And so let's kind of look at some of those examples here. Now, this is Pine Mountain, which is over 6,000 feet and over 30 miles outside of Bend. And as you can see, the sky glow from Bend, Redmond, and Prineville is very, very apparent. And because these are very dark skies up in Pine Mountain where they have the observatory. And so the sky glow really brightens up the western side of the sky. Now, well, let's talk about glare. So a lot of people have a very bright lights outside of their house. And when you have this bright light, it can, as I mentioned, cause temporary night blindness and prevents you from actually seeing things in the shadows. And so, as you can see, by the light being shielded, you can actually see more of what's in the darker areas around the property. So bright light and glare actually inhibits your ability to see very well in the dark.
Bright, unshielded security lights don't provide much security. They blind us and cast sharp, dark shadows where anything can hide. Security lights that are less bright, more yellow in color, and shielded are better. Oh, look, there's a Sasquatch. The light is safer. We can see into the shadows because the glare is gone.
So now let's move over to light trespass. This is a significant problem, especially with string lights, because they broadcast light in 360 degrees, and they are almost impossible to shield. But we also got other examples of where people have got these floodlights and they're not pointed downwards, and they can actually cause a lot of nuisance to people having the light come directly into either their bedrooms or where they are actually enjoying evening watching TV or something like that. And so therefore, having a friendly talk with your neighbor or inviting them over to your house and seeing what the light trespass is definitely an approach to addressing this issue.
Oh man, not again. I really need to talk to my neighbor about this. Hey Ruff, I want to mention that your security light wakes us all up.
I'm sorry, I had no idea. Maybe I can shield my light and point it down.
That's a great idea. And how about using warm colored bulbs that aren't so bright?
Yeah, okay. That's better.
So light clutter is again just a lot of different lighting solutions that are out there with no coordination between the different light sources. And unfortunately, this is a very difficult thing to address other than having an overall lighting ordinance for a city or a municipality. Why is light pollution an issue? Well, we're going to talk about the disruption to the ecosystem, also human health, and then we've already talked about glare and light trespass. And not only that, there is also a dollar component to this, and we'll have a couple of slides to talk about the energy waste and, of course, the amount of carbon footprint that is used to generate the electricity where this is wasted. And then, of course, there is some aesthetics, which we'll talk to in some later slides. Dark Sky International has got these 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting, that it's useful, targeted, low level, controlled, and warm colored. And fundamentally, the light should really go where it's needed and only at a necessary level in order for you to not lose your dark adaptation at night. And then controlled, you really only want the light to come on when either there's a motion detected or that it's needed if there are people that are using that space. And then one of the things that I'm going to keep coming back to is go amber, because it removes the blue component of the spectrum of the light. So this is an old slide going back to 2011, but it's still valuable to see how much light pollution and how much energy is spent illuminating our night. So light pollution also has an impact on climate change. Artificial light at night, or ALAN, it disrupts the ecosystem and also our own circadian rhythm. And as I keep mentioning, the shielded and dimmable amber lighting is the way to go to reduce the sky glow. And then, of course, the aspect of 20% of global electricity is used for illumination at night. Here's an example that I got from Marissa Thrieve of an example of wasted electricity and lighting being used during the daylight hours. I don't know Bush Pasture Park and the reason why they would have this lighting on, but here's an example of that waste. Let's also talk about some other aspects of outdoor lighting, and we talked about the usage, but let's talk about the shielding, and where you've got lighting that broadcasts out at 360 degrees creates a lot of upshine. and that's what gives the sky glow. Then we can talk about the color temperature. Again, the amber lighting with the removal of the blue component of the spectrum, and then turning down the actual intensity, so saving electricity and keeping that dark adaptation. And then, of course, the timing with only having it on when it's needed. So below here are a couple of examples of bad shielding and good shielding, where the light is going just where it's directed. Here's some other examples of responsible outdoor lighting, where the lighting is actually directed downwards and is not creating sky glow. But one thing to mention is that when it rains, the actual reflectivity of asphalt is still significant, and you do get some upshine caused by lights hitting the shiny asphalt and going up into the sky. So it's not completely preventable, but again, taking out that blue component really helps with the situation. Let's switch over to Flagstaff, Arizona, which has had some of the most stringent light ordinances in the country for many decades. And the reason for this is just outside of town, they've got the Naval Observatory. So, of course, they want to promote being dark sky friendly around an observatory where they're doing actual science. And here are some examples of where the entire city has gone over to amber lighting, even though they've still got a few light fixtures that are broadcasting out light at 360 degrees. But down here in the left-hand corner, you have a very good contrast between something like 2000 or 1800 kelvins versus about 4,500 kelvins under this gas station. And the thing is they've got very, very strict rules around having this type of light spectra, where it has to be completely shielded to prevent sky glow. So let's talk about sports lighting. And sports lighting is a major component of light pollution of the high schools and other sports facilities. But that doesn't mean to say that it can't be a good lighting. And here are some examples of where the lighting has been designed in order to prevent sky glow, as well as light trespass. And one of the things that we're working with in Bend, with the Bend Parks and Recreation District, is they are very forward thinking. They want all of their sports lighting in all of their facilities to actually be dark sky certified. And we're working on a project with them over at Pine Nursery Park on a multi-million-dollar upgrade to their sporting facilities and sports field facilities, where they have actually reached out to Dark Sky Oregon in order to get Dark Sky International certification for their sports lighting. So now let's talk about this concept of the blue in the spectrum. Over here we've got two examples. They just put a really large Costco installation in Bend, and we took a handheld spectrometer out there shortly before the store opened, and we took a colorated color temperature spectrum of these light fixtures, and found out that they were running at almost 4200 Kelvin. And as you can see, they have a significant blue component to them. And not only because of this spectra, the also intensity of the lights is creating a significant amount of sky glow. Now, there's another company, the Marriott Group, that has multiple hotels around the States, and they are very, very dark sky friendly in all of their locations. Now, in the olden days, where you actually had sodium vapor lights, high pressure sodium vapor lights, where they were very, very energy intensive, but created this amber lighting and reduced the amount of sky glow that one would see because of the pretty much almost zero blue component to their spectra. There are LEDs that actually put out this light spectra, and as you can see, this example here where you've got 1800 Kelvin CCT, that is practically no blue light in the spectrum, and the the actual parking lot is very well illuminated. So another slide from Marissa, specifically around Salem. And I'm not going to read through all of the details here, but certainly the city is open to taking some steps in order to reduce their light pollution. And one of the things to consider in the future is actually revisiting the actual lighting ordinance for the city, and taking steps to put a remediation plan in place for areas of the city where light pollution is more of an issue. So here is a map that Marissa provided showing some areas where there is significant light pollution. And again, it's working sometimes with these businesses in order to educate them to how they could actually adjust their lighting in order to be more dark sky friendly and reduce the light pollution that is evident in an urban setting. Here we have some examples of how the actual sky glow has increased from 2012 up to 2024, and showing the boundary of the light dome around Salem and how it has increased from this green line up to from 2013 all the way up to 2024. And as you can see by this graph, the actual predictable growth is continuing to increase, but it can be changed if a lighting ordinance is looked at. So now let's switch gears and go over to the impact to human and wildlife. And again, focusing much more on the blue light and how much of an impact it has on us and also the fauna. So this looks familiar. Computer screens are a major source of blue light based on the LED and LCD design of these devices, and not only that, also TVs and such like, and any artificial screen that one has, including your phone. So why is a blue part of the blue light part of the problem? And it comes down to the physiology relating to your eye and how blue light scatters and how it also impacts the melatonin production and also glutamate production, which is a stimulant to your brain. So I'm not a medical professional, but certainly can talk about the impact of melatonin. And as you can see by this graph below here, of the blue part of the spectrum has the most impact on the circadian sensitivity, and also your photopic sensitivity relating to blue light. So let's talk about the melatonin production. Melatonin starts being produced by the human body at around 8 p.m. It peaks at around about 2 a.m. and then falls off at 8 a.m. Now, blue light actually inhibits the production of melatonin naturally in the brain. And so therefore, being exposed to blue light between 8 p.m. and bedtime has an impact on the amount of melatonin that is produced, which thus impacts one's circadian rhythm. Now, we're not the only ones who are impacted by this, and in the next few slides, we'll talk about the impact that it has on not only nocturnal, but also insect life.
Since the dawn of time, life evolved to adapt to the lighted environments around them. Cool blue light from the sun and warmer light from the moon at night, lacking the blue color. Unfortunately, humans have now brought that blue light back through the use of white light bulbs. This has led to disruption in the natural cycles of many life forms, including people. So switch to yellow and amber colored lights at night to give us all a break.
So as you can see, it's kind of a recurring theme that we, go amber. And I'll keep returning to this theme because it is such an important component of trying to reduce light pollution. So the other thing to bear in mind is that insects are very, very sensitive to white and the blue part of the spectrum. And as you can see by this image here, that insects are greatly focused around, as you say, the moth to the lights. But the thing is that these bug lights, or 1800 kelvins amber lights, they are pretty much invisible to insects. And the reason why it's kind of important is because a lot of these insects have their other uses, which this short video will show. Here's another example of what insects see. And we can see here that by shielding the light here, that it is invisible to them. And thank you for Rima and Scott for these images. So here's the video I was talking about.
Credit for pollinating. But did you know we moths handle the night shift? Pollinating at night is thankless work, and it's dangerous too, especially when those bright white outdoor lights are around. We just can't help circling them until we fall apart from exhaustion, and it takes the simplest of fixes to prevent it. See these amber lights? You humans can, but I can't. I mean, is this thing even on? So remember, when you turn on those bright white lights, you're getting in the way of some of nature's most important work. Do us all a favor and switch to amber. The birds and bees will thank you too.
So now we talk about the other creatures that don't necessarily share, that they are nocturnal. They don't necessarily share the same light cycle that we do. But having this light at night and light pollution impacts their circadian rhythm too. As you can see by this graphic here, the different nocturnal species that are impacted by light pollution. And it not only impacts their circadian rhythm, it also can impact their ability to either seek or finish up being prey, and also interrupts the navigation of birds and other creatures. So here's a graphic showing actually just around Italy of how birds are attracted to light pollution, and how the light pollution impacts the airspeed and altitudes that these birds fly, and finishes up with really unfortunate metrics on bird collisions. And I think this next video will show that too.
Okay, everyone, today is migration day. Is everyone ready? All right, we'll be taking off near sunset and flying all night.
This is my first migration. Why do we go at night?
We go at night for smoother flying and to keep the hawks off our backs. We'll also be guided by the position of the sunset, the North Star, and Orion's belt. Watch out for light pollution from cities that blot out the stars at night. There's a lot of good birds attracted to those lit up lanes. Maybe one day humans can participate in lights out programs during our migration, but we're just not there yet. So fly safe and keep singing.
What's kind of scary is that we lose over 1 billion birds a year from these types of collisions with buildings and other impacts due to light pollution. And the thing is that sometimes these can be endangered species as well. So now we'll talk about the impact on the night sky, which is something very, very close to my heart as an astrophotographer. So we basically take measurements not only from the ground, but also getting satellite images, which actually show the progression of light pollution over a period of time. And one of the primary causes is this transition over from sodium and mercury vapor lights over to the cheaper and much brighter LED lighting, which puts out a much greater broad spectrum with more blue component in it. So here is a graphic actually showing the progression of light pollution across the US from the 50s all the way through to 2025. And you'll notice that the biggest jump is between 1997 and 2025 with the advent of LED lighting. And unfortunately, this continues to grow on an ongoing basis. So here is a map that we have showing the Oregon as a whole, and showing a zenith view of light pollution and how it is migrating into the pristine night skies that we still have in Oregon. And as you can see, from 2015 all the way to 2023, it has expanded to 15 miles into this pristine night sky environment. And unfortunately, we are continuing to lose the battle here. So here's the impact that it actually has on our ability to actually see stars and some of the wonders of the night sky as well as the Milky Way. As you can see from an urban environment, you're able to see maybe a few magnitude 1 stars. But then when you get into a suburban environment and outside the city, you get to see a lot more stars, which take you down to the 4th magnitude. Now, where I go and image about 30 miles outside of Bend, we've got what is called Bortle 2 skies, and I'll show you a slide on that a little bit later. But it's much more difficult to actually make out the constellations because there is so many more stars that you can see, and then the Milky Way is just a huge swath across the sky, especially in the summertime when Sagittarius is up and Cygnus is overhead, and the Milky Way is just like a ribbon across the sky. The scary part is that 80% of the population of the US can't see the Milky Way from their backyard. So the starry night skies are receding, but we can bring them back. And actually, light pollution is one of the easiest things to solve with education and outreach, continued certification of international dark sky places, and also reduction of sky glow. Now, I'm going to talk about this in the next couple of slides relating to a program that we have of measuring sky glow across Oregon using devices called sky quality meters. There's also an economic component to the dark skies based on the growing industry around dark sky tourism, and also working with a lot of nature programs and hiking and seeing the night sky. And then, of course, we're going to talk more about responsible lighting outdoors. So, international dark sky places, there are hundreds and hundreds of them across the planet. Of course, the US has got most of them, but we are also very proud to have several of them in Oregon. And they are made up of communities, parks, reserves, sanctuaries, urban night sky places, and approved lodging, which is a very new one. And the components of becoming certified, it can be a multi-year program. And not all of the dark sky communities are actually dark. It just means that they have actually taken on the discipline of monitoring the night sky, adopting a lighting policy, becoming a dark sky friendly with lighting retrofits based on a lighting policy or a lighting ordinance, and then continuing outreach and education. So here is a snapshot of what's going on in Oregon right now. So we have several dark sky parks. We have also the largest dark sky sanctuary on the planet, which is the actual Oregon Outback, and we're looking to expand the size of that, going all the way out to the Idaho border state line. And so at the moment, it's half the size of New Jersey. And I had the opportunity last October to go out to the Oregon Outback in a place called French Glen. And I had the opportunity to stand in a field, look 360 degrees around me, and not see a single artificial light. And the night skies were just splendid. So Sun River actually predates dark sky community certification, which is why it's called the dark sky development of distinction. And then Antelope and Sisters just recently in the last couple of years became dark sky communities, and Antelope just recently became our first dark sky lodging location. And then below is where we're working actively with dark sky communities in order for them to get certification. So each one of these is in a different stage of its certification progress. Here is a map that Dark Sky International puts out relating to all of the certified dark sky places in the US. And this is kind of an eye chart, but the actual graphic at the bottom there gives you an ability to download a PDF version of this map, and it's updated on an annual basis as more dark sky places come online. So it's not a no-win situation. We are continuing to increase the number of dark sky communities and places across the US. And as you can see, the eastern side of the country is significantly light polluted. So let's talk about the actual sky quality meters. Dark Sky Oregon is very, very proud to have actually the largest program for these sky quality meters. And we have over 80 of them spread across the state. And we have a large volunteer program where on a quarterly basis, they download the data from these sky quality meters in order to put into a piece of software to actually then normalize the data in order to show trends. So when I talk about normalizing the data, it's taking out cloudy nights, moonlit nights, and when the Milky Way is passing over, because that actually creates a sky glow on its own, especially in some of these dark sky areas. And so therefore we try and normalize the data. So therefore we're actually tracking the data where there are no significant star fields. And that gives us an overall trending pattern. And on an annual basis, we put out a very detailed scientific report, white paper, that is published, and you can find it on our Dark Sky Oregon website. Here's a map, and it's a little bit out of date because now we've got over 80 of these sky quality meters across the state. And as you can see, we've got significant gaps in some areas here where we don't have these sky quality meters. They're about $600 or $700 each. And while Dark Sky Oregon donates a lot of these to parks and other locations at schools and such like, there are areas which are very, very minimally populated, and it is very difficult to get volunteers to actually have these sky quality meters serviced on an ongoing basis, because you have to replace the batteries and download the data and then send it in. We are looking for some more opportunities to have sky quality meters on the western side of the state where they are more populous. But again, it's coming up with volunteers to actually administer this program. So now we'll talk about the economics of dark skies, as I mentioned earlier on. Astrotourism is building, especially in central Oregon and also more in the eastern side of the state, where we have been blessed with much more darker skies. And I'm certainly working with a lot of different nature programs. Wanderlust Tours is an example that is actually located in Bend, Oregon. You've got the Oregon Observatory in Sun River, and a lot of other tourism things going on. And we talk about 80% of the people can't see the Milky Way from their home, so they come to an area which has got a lot of pristine dark skies in order to enjoy the wonders of a truly dark sky location. Here, as I mentioned earlier on, is the Bortle scale. This is something that astronomers use to determine the quality of the night sky. And as you can see, from inner city all the way through to an excellent dark sky site, the visibility of the Milky Way is quite significant, with the difference in the contrast in the sky. And as I say, the most incredible skies I've ever been under were actually in Arizona, coming back from the Grand Canyon, where not only are you at a high elevation, you've also got very dry air and also pretty much no light pollution whatsoever. So let's talk about responsible lighting here. And here we've got three different examples. Now, this is not where we are today. This is actually if all lights were 3000 kelvins, and we only had 15% up lighting. And so this is an example of poor shielding, but this is not where we are today. We are actually worse than this. But Then you look over here where you move to all lights being 3000 Kelvin and no uplighting, in other words, excellent shielding. So you can see the dramatic difference in between Portland and Bend, Redmond and Prineville. So just look at this space here and how much darker it is. But then when you go to amber lighting, and I keep talking about amber lighting, with no uplighting, you can see that you've pretty much gone back to the 1950s with the actual light pollution. And this is something that is possible, but again, it means that there needs to be a high priority in actually affecting this type of change. But any continuum along this direction would be very beneficial, not only to preserving our pristine night skies, but also the impact that it has, as I mentioned earlier on, to our own circadian rhythm and also the impact on the fauna that we share the planet with. So this is another new topic, and this is actual space-related light pollution. And you may have heard on the news recently about some projects that are being thought through, which could completely change our whole view of what night and day actually means. But from an astrophotography perspective, this has been an ongoing problem. And I actually did a presentation to COCC a few months ago on space debris and the ongoing pollution up there of space debris. And the one aspect that we talk about is the potential Kessler syndrome. If anybody of you have seen the movie Gravity, that gives an example of the Kessler syndrome, where you have a cascading effect of satellites colliding with each other and creating a cloud of debris that would inhibit our ability to explore space going forward. But that's not a topic for this, but let's talk about this impact of light pollution coming from space now. Now, with the thousands and thousands of satellites that we've got in low Earth orbit, if you've noticed, just after sunset or before sunrise, the amount of movement you have in the sky from satellites based on the sunlight hitting the reflective surfaces of these satellites at kind of a tangential angle and then reflecting it back to the Earth, it becomes kind of a nuisance, not only to us who do amateur astrophotography, but also professional astronomers, where it impacts their science. So let's talk about now the impact of these two critical programs that are gaining news. And one of the most egregious ones is this Reflect Orbital, where they want to put up 4,000 space mirrors in low Earth orbit to actually capture the sunlight and direct it to places on Earth in a 4-mile radius, and to light up not only solar farms, but also light on demand or sunlight on demand for natural disasters and other commercial needs. And this would not only take away the concept of having nighttime versus daylight hours, but also have an impact on ongoing issues with having a Kessler syndrome event with 4,000 more items in low Earth orbit. Now, the first level of funding is 20 million, which they've received, and they're going to be putting up their first demonstration satellite later on this month. And I am in favor of Dark Sky's opposition to this project. Another example of an egregious use of space and potential light pollution is also the 1 million satellite program that Elon Musk has submitted to the FCC to put up these artificial intelligence data centers that will be powered by solar energy. While it would take the actual impact on the grid away, but 1 million satellites on top of the huge constellations of satellites that are up there right now would significantly change the situation that we have in low Earth orbit. And not only that, the reflectivity of these solar panels would also have an unknown level of light pollution that would be impacting our night and day. So again, these are two programs that Dark Sky International is vehemently against, and we wanted to give you exposure to the fact that these should be vehemently protested against. Let's switch gears to what you can do in your area, and I'm not talking about space. I'm talking about in your around your house and also in your community. So there are various dark sky groups within Oregon that roll up under Dark Sky Oregon, and here are some examples. And there's one specifically I want to draw your attention to, which is Dark Sky Salem, that is now forming. And here's the email address that this group is using in order to get volunteers to help with projects that they are doing in your area. And so I'm in the Bend Night Sky Alliance, and one of the projects that we're working on there is we've got over 1,900 streetlights across the city of Bend, and we've got several of them actually. We don't know exactly how many because we're mapping them, that the actual phosphor coating of the streetlight is failing, so they're coming back to their native blue or ultraviolet LEDs. And those are becoming pretty hazardous to drivers because they become very dim. The amount of lux that they produce is much lower, but also the blue light that comes out of them, which is creating even more sky glow. So we're doing a public service project in order to map all of these street lights using GIS software, and then tracking the pole numbers that they're on and giving that information back to Pacific Corp, who owns the actual street lights, and also the City of Bend Public Works, so they're aware of these street lights that are failing. And one of the other projects that we are trying to work on with the City of Bend is to push forward on a dark sky initiative to get them to revisit their lighting ordinance that goes back to 2014, which predates LED lighting. We were very successful with actually with the Deschutes County, where we were instrumental in them updating their lighting ordinance just last December, which went back to 2004. And we are continuing to work with them in order to help them with some of the farmers and ranchers that are trying to comply with the new lighting ordinance and the grandfathering program that is in place. So what can you do? And again, I'll leave this slide up for a little while for you to actually take a picture of the code on the right-hand side. But one of the things that you can do is actually do a lighting assessment in your home. And one of the things that we did here at our house is we actually painted a lot of the lights, outside lights, with a yellow dye in order to actually reduce the CCT Kelvin rating on those outdoor lights. So you may not even have to replace those lights unless, of course, they are creating light trespass, or they are egregiously bright floodlights that you can look at replacing the bulbs in them. But the other thing that we did inside our house was replace the actual lights that are on our bedside table and also in our living room with amber bulbs, these bug light bulbs that put out 1800 kelvins. And so therefore, in the time that our lights come on and the time that we go to bed, the predominant lighting in the room is at 1800 kelvins, which creates more melatonin production before we go to bed. So here are other things that you can do. You can join Dark Sky International, become a member and contribute, as well as contribute to Dark Sky Oregon. That is the chapter that is specific to Oregon as a whole. So you've got these other codes here that you can download, as well as some scientific articles on light pollution. The more and more you read about this, the more and more technical it gets. But the thing is that the more educated you become on light pollution as a whole. Now, I talked about amber bulbs. This is, I actually downloaded this from Amazon, and there are many different vendors out there, and there are many different bulbs that you can purchase in order to replace your higher Kelvin rated bulbs, usually 3,000, 4,000, even 5,000, with a blue white light inside your house. So just as a summary here, so using a responsible outdoor lighting not only protects you with your circadian rhythm, but also the wild ecosystem. Avoid using white light at night that contains the blue wavelengths, and go amber, as I keep saying. And then do an inventory of your own lighting. That will help. And then also work with local government, and again going back to these local chapters within the Dark Sky Oregon, and volunteer with them. And as I mentioned, that light pollution is now not only a threat from the surface, but also from space going forward. And together we can bring back our starry night skies. So thank you. And I will hand the program back.
And we got some great questions here in the chat for you. So the first one was, is there a recommended color temperature?
A lot of lighting at the moment is targeted around 3,000 kelvins, and going down to 27, 2800 kelvins, where you can see kind of a yellow or a warm light, is better. But of course, amber lighting is the way to go, because again, you remove the blue component. And if you go to Costco or some of these big box stores, it's very difficult to find 1800 Kelvin, but anything below 3000 Kelvin is definitely going to be an improvement.
I think we got a good question here. So how does a person or an entity participate in the Oregon Sky Glow Measurement Network? Specifically, what is the commitment for participation? Is there a criteria? And
yes, there is criteria, and in fact, we've actually got a white paper that we can provide to you, where we have this program. Not only does it show how to install the sky quality meters, but how to actually service them on an ongoing basis. And it's basically once a quarter that it takes probably about half an hour's worth of time in order to actually change the batteries and download the data. And both myself and Bill Kwalik, who is the chairperson for Dark Sky Oregon, we can actually help with the installation, as well as other board members that can help with the installation and placement of these. And it's not just finding a post that points upwards, but also we have to protect them from birds. And so therefore we have to sometimes put bird spikes around them to stop the birds from perching on them and interfering with our data gathering, as well as their waste covering the actual window. So that those are things that we have to kind of work with. But if it's in an area like a park or something like that, we can actually provide the sky quality meter at no cost. But of course, if it's a private business, we look to them for making a contribution in order to fund those devices.
do you currently have any of these meters in Marion County?
I've been trying to work with the science teacher over at Aberquan, but unfortunately I haven't heard back from him, because that is where both of our grandchildren go.
Oh my gosh, we are 1 o'clock on the dot. We could not be more on time. And I think oh wait, sorry, did get a couple more questions. So if you don't
Okay.
mind saying a few minutes after.
Not a problem. No, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Awesome. Well, we've done a couple Zoom questions. We can move to the online questions here. I see that Thomas has his hand raised.
Yes, hi. I have a question in terms of communities. So, what mechanisms do they rely on to actually get people to participate? Do they rely on enforcement? Are there programs of like swapping bulbs? Because I think we all agree that this is a really important and great thing. But how do how do you get people to participate, or how do you get people to actually comply with the rules? Because having rules is not enough.
Well, okay, so let's step back a moment. The thing is that we focus on education, not being
Okay.
light pollution police. And the thing is that you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, and that's the approach that we pretty much take. So pretty much what and I showed you on one of the slides where we have all of these different small chapters where they engage with their local leaders and engage with them in a very sort of collaborative fashion, where we try and educate them as to what are the benefits of actually doing these things. And so therefore, eventually, that leads to an actual change in the lighting ordinance, and then that lighting ordinance then becomes should I say, the police for when you've got a grandfathering clause, and then you've got like 3 to 5 years where there has to be remediation take place before it then becomes a penalty, or where a fine could be levied. But again, Dark Sky Oregon is not trying to get into the role of being a police. It is trying to educate people where decision makers that are in local government would then become that enforcing side. And not only that, we've also had a lot of communities where they have actually reached out to, we've got like trespass, and we've got nuisance lighting, where we've engaged people to work with their neighbors in order to have a discussion with them before it gets to a point where it has to be escalated to an authority, where an existing lighting ordinance is then used to enforce any light trespass infractions.
And do you know of any programs where there's actually light bulb swaps or something,
In fact, Sisters, just as I say, December of last year got their dark sky certification, and their actual council has a light bulb swap program in place. And it's just started, so we're just trying to see what the progress is on that. But again, Sisters is a much smaller community, obviously, than Salem, and so therefore one has to be, should I say, has to kind of look at the scale, and has to also manage expectations with regards what can be achieved. And it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Sure.
Other questions?
Looks like we got two more quick ones, if that's okay, Amy. Awesome. So, have any cities incorporated responsible lighting guidelines with their sustainable building operations plans and policies?
Well, yes, I gave a couple of examples. We have, in fact, if I went back to the slides, let me just kind of talk about. Dark Skies Gorge, and the Gorge, but Sisters is an example, very, very specifically, Sun River. Sun River as a city, when you go into Sun River, not only just around the observatory, all of their lighting is shielded. And they were actually the first community, or should I say, area of distinction, where the whole city is actual dark sky certified. And Sisters is moving towards that. While they got their certification, that's just the first step. Then they have to remediate all of the actual public lighting in order to become dark sky compliant over a 3 or 5 year period. So therefore, when a place gets dark sky certified, that doesn't mean to say all of a sudden they're dark. it means that they have actually certified that they have put a lighting ordinance in place and that they are committed to a remediation program where they're going to reduce the actual sky glow in their community. And on an ongoing basis, they have to recertify and show that onward compliance to that mandate. But there are a lot of other communities in and across Oregon that are moving in that direction. And some of these local chapters or these groups are actually instrumental in moving those communities towards that goal.
Bring it home here with our last question. So you mentioned painting your bulbs yellow.
Yes.
What did you use? And also a thank you for a very accessible presentation.
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to provide this education.
Absolutely. Do you mind sharing what do you use? So do you paint the light bulbs yellow? Does that work for existing bulbs, or do you have to actually purchase?
We went out to Michael's and actually found some yellow paint that is used for making stained glass. We found that and then we just painted the light bulbs, because some of the fixtures are actual LEDs and you can't actually paint the LEDs, so they've got kind of like a glass globe around them, and so we painted all the actual glass yellow. And when you go down the street and you see all of the other houses that are pushing out 3,000 kelvins, ours are kind of like down into the low 2000s, and there's a very marked difference between the color of our lights that we put out with our light fixtures with identical light fixtures that are on other houses. So we know that it actually has an impact. Light pollution is actually one of the easiest forms of pollution to address, but again, it takes a commitment and it takes a desire to actually do it. And part of that is an education in order to understand that changing a behavior, the first step is education and then a willingness to do so.
Folks really appreciated your presentation, Chris. We really thank you so much for, clearly your knowledge and your expertise and just sharing your own personal experiences with this and what you've kind of done to mitigate that. And a lot of our folks are really interested in pollinators and wildlife. And so I think knowing practical ways that we can help not only those species, but our own, is wonderful. So can't thank you enough for being here today.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, the key thing, the message to take away is the diversity of the impact that light pollution has. It's not just, from my own selfish reasons for preserving the night sky for astrophotography. It's just the impact of for us and who we share the planet with.
Well, for folks that are interested, if this inspired anyone that was joining us today, we invite folks to participate in Dark Skies Salem. Chris mentioned the email there, which is also on your screen here. So we please do encourage you to reach out and participate. So folks are aware, there is a City of Salem Dark Sky Week proclamation that's going to be taking place this month on April 13th at 6 p.m. at the Salem Public Library. So for folks that are interested, we would love to have you join 6 p.m. on April 13th. And so we hope folks will also join us for our upcoming First Friday presentations next month. In the spirit of spring and summer, we're going to be joined by Sage Fairman with the Oregon Climate and Agricultural Network, otherwise known as ORCAN, who will be discussing soil health, the benefits to soil health, and what ORCAN specifically is doing to collaboratively address soil health, not just in our backyard, but statewide. So we really hope that folks will join us next month, and thank you so much for being here today.